I'm Tinny from Mini Bull Design, and this is going to be a two-part video. On the second half, I'm going to show you some of the things I did to my pack to lighten it up and my cooking system. Some pretty interesting stuff. And this is the first half. I'm just going to talk for a few minutes about some stuff I've noticed. Now, on YouTube, when I post videos, there's a lot of comments there, and sometimes they kind of rub me the wrong way, and here's why. And if I've offended anybody on YouTube, I apologize for that. But after a long day, getting some really nasty comments or some, abrasive comments, sometimes it bothers me. Here's the deal. Okay, there's like three things. Let's see if I can get them all. There's knives, there's guns, and there's campfires. Okay, I'll start with guns because it's the easiest one to understand. Now, at one time, I was a complete handgun fanatic. When I went backpacking, I carried a handgun with me. Now, I've lived in this state for 60 years, and I spent a fair amount of time in the woods, out in the wild. I always lived back in the woods. I've never seen a bear. In fact, I've never seen anything that I considered to be a threat to me, using a little common sense. So, if I told you that when I was backpacking, I carried a .357 Magnum snub nose, full frame .357. If I told you I was carrying that because of bears, that'd be a lie. I obviously wasn't carrying it because of bears. I'll tell you why I was carrying it. A gun gives you an extremely high level of security. When you have a gun readily available, it gives you the feeling that if you run into a bad situation, you're going to be able to take care of yourself. It's security, solid security. It's a feeling of power to have a handgun in your hand. If you've got a handgun in your hand, you're in a pretty safe place as far as anything or anybody bothering you. And it's just it's a security. It was a security blanket for me. I just really like the feeling of having a gun in my pack. Plus, to be perfectly honest with you, I just like guns. I really, really liked guns. And if I could find any situation where I could justify carrying one, I definitely would carry one, because I was a gun freak, and that's all there is to it. And that's the honesty of it. So when I hear somebody ask me why I don't carry a gun, or tells me if I don't carry a gun I'm going to get eaten by bears or something, what they're really saying is, I like guns, and that would be a good excuse to carry one right there. So if I were you, I'd carry one because I like guns. Okay, second thing would be knives. I've talked about just carrying a pair of scissors, and I've taken a lot of flack for that. Okay, at one time I was a knife nut. I know about knives, and I know how knives affect people's psyche. I like knives. I like the edge. I like sharpening them. I like the way they feel cutting through something. It's, once again, a sense of security. A knife is just a really nice thing to have, because if you've got a knife, once again, you're in a fairly secure situation, because you can do a lot of damage to anything with a knife, including yourself, but that's another subject. So if somebody asks me why I'm carrying a knife, any particular knife, and I say for self-defense, that would be a lie. At the time, I was carrying a knife because I like knives. And I'll get back to this in a minute. Now, fire is no different. You can carry an alcohol stove on the Appalachian Trail, or canister stove, whatever. You'll be fine. No problem at all. But there are situations when it's cold or if you get wet where a fire definitely would be a good idea, especially for hypothermia. All you have to carry is some matches, a source of ignition, and you've got a fire. Now, I like a fire just as well as the next guy, and there's nothing wrong with that. And if you like fire, and you like cooking over a fire, and the fire is warm and fuzzy to you, then by all means cook on a fire. But don't try to justify it on an alcohol stove video that you do it to save weight. That's bullshit. You're not doing it to save weight. You're doing it because you like fire, and there's nothing wrong with that. Okay, here's the thing. If anybody likes fire or knives or guns on my videos, just say so. Just say, I cook on an open fire because I really like a fire. Don't try to justify it for weight. Don't try to justify the guns for defense. Just be honest and say what you mean. If you like guns, you like knives, or you like a campfire, just say so. And if anybody rubs you the wrong way or tries to shoot you down and make fun of you, and I see it on the comments, I'll delete them and block them. I promise you that. Because that's not right. If you like guns, knives, or fire, no problem at all. Just admit it right up front. And if somebody says, blah, 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 you know the guy, the trolls and stuff, we'll just get rid of them. So all you guys that like knives, guns, and fire, you're my friends. I'm your friends. I totally understand you, and I've been there. So that having been said, that's what I'd like to see on the comments from now on. No more of this backdoor justification thing. Just admit it. Okay, let's go look at my pack. Okay, let's take a look at Tinny's cook set. Now, once you make a stove that's 9.7 grams, it completely changes the landscape of things. Everything else starts looking heavy to you. For example, matches. This was a box of Coleman waterproof camp matches. It was full right to the top of matches. It was probably, I don't know, maybe 50 matches in it, 40, 50. So I weighed it, and it weighed as much as my stove. Well, that just rubbed me the wrong way. My matches should weigh as much as my stove. That's just not right. So that's like having your girlfriend weigh as much as your motorcycle. It's just not right. So I took out some of the matches, and I left 20 matches inside, and that dropped it down to 6.8 grams, less than my stove. So that's cool. Okay, now I wanted a pot that was really lightweight, and I also wanted a pot that was wide enough to take advantage of all the flame pattern from this stove. And this stove does give out a fairly large flame ring. Now, ideally, I would use a DVC, but it's not really wide enough. Some of the flames go up by it, so I wasn't really happy with it. Another thing about the Dutch beer can is I'm only boiling water in it, so it's fine. But if I do want to stir up pudding or something in it, it's kind of funky in the bottom and hard to clean. So I found this pot, which I think came with a Snow Peak kit, and I'm not really sure. I've had it for years and years and used it now and then, but I took the handle off it. It had a handle, but it was one of those handles that usually burn. I call it burn your fingers handle. I took that off. Now I could have put silicone tubing over the handle, but that would have made it. Silicone tubing is really heavy and it doesn't work that well. So anyway, so this pot weighs 47 grams. About an ounce and a half, maybe a little over an ounce and a half, and it works very well. Now my meals only take 12 ounces of water. So 12 ounces of water in this, with this stove and an ounce of alcohol, will bring the water to a boil in 3.5 minutes. That's fine with me. That's really quick. It's really efficient, fuel-wise and weight-wise. But here we run into a rub. Okay, now when I want to transfer the water from here into the bag, I got to grab this pot. It doesn't have the fiberglass wrap, which, by the way, is heavy too. Now, option 2 would be to carry a pot grabber. This pot grabber weighs 46 grams. You know, that's as much as a pot, so that's really out of the question. So, I found that a piece of carbon felt, a small piece of carbon felt, maybe 1.5 by 1.5, works very well for a pot grabber. Actually, a little easier on the fingers than the original fiberglass wick. And I also found out that this carbon felt, face inches for face inches, 1 square foot versus 1 square foot of the aluminum I use for the windscreens, it weighs almost exactly the same. So a piece of aluminum this size and this weigh the same. And I can use this for a windscreen. Now, there's 2 advantages to this. One is, doesn't matter how close I get to the flame, it won't melt like a windscreen will. I call them windscreens, not flame screens, but sometimes somebody will get one a little close and the flames will try to escape between the pot and it'll melt the windscreen. And second off, since this is carbon felt, I can just use the end of it for a pot grabber. Dual purpose, and an improvement over the original idea, and lighter. So I think all the way around, and also I can wrap my stove in it when I get done to protect it. Another thing I did was I had a bandana in here, and one of the people pointed out that I also have a bandana in my clothing bag. Now I found out the bandana weighs an ounce, and I've already got my clothing bag, so I took that out, so that saved me an ounce. Altogether here, between switching stoves and pots and bandanas and windscreens, I saved about 7 ounces. It's almost a half a pound. That's huge. And everything actually, for me, works better this way and takes up less space. So I'm Tinny from Mini Bowl Design. Get out and hike, take a friend, enjoy the great outdoors, and more important than anything, leave no trace. And have a really great day. Bye-bye.